During the stress phase of Delta Force selection at Camp Dawson, West Virginia, candidates navigate alone through the Appalachian Mountains for stretches exceeding 72 hours with less than 2 to 3 hours of cumulative sleep, carrying rucksacks weighing between 45 and 70 pounds while making continuous navigational decisions that determine whether they pass or are silently removed from the course. Former Delta operator George Hand described reaching a point where he could no longer distinguish terrain features from hallucinations, yet was expected to plot accurate compass bearings and maintain pace through darkness, fog, and mountain laurel so dense it had to be physically fought through. The physical load does not break these men. The sleep deprivation rewires their brains into instruments of self-destruction, and roughly 90% of America's most elite soldiers cannot survive what their own minds become. A single 24-hour cycle during Delta Force selection reveals the hidden machinery of exhaustion. Candidates are handed a map grid and a rucksack. By the second week, it weighs close to 45 pounds and told to reach a series of checkpoints scattered across the Appalachian foothills. Each leg stretches for 12 to 18 miles, with elevation gains that can climb over 1,000 feet in a day. There is no group, no feedback, and no schedule beyond the arrival window at each checkpoint. The only rule: arrive within a strict 30-minute window or risk silent removal from the course. The math behind the schedule is quietly brutal. At an average pace of 2.5 miles per hour, crossing 15 miles of rugged terrain takes 6 hours. Add in the next leg and then the next, and the day is quickly consumed. 3 checkpoints, each with a mandatory wait, absorb another 1.5 hours. Meals and water breaks, rare chances to sit, steal away another hour. By the time the numbers are tallied, more than 20 hours of each day are spoken for. What remains is a sliver of time, rarely more than 3.5 hours, to be divided between sleep, preparation, and the unpredictable delays that come with rain, darkness, or a misread compass bearing. No cadre ever say, "Don't sleep." Instead, the schedule forces the decision. Every candidate faces the same trade-off: close your eyes and risk missing a checkpoint, or keep moving and hope the body can outlast the mind. Over 3 days, the deficit compounds. Rest comes in fragments: 10 minutes against a tree, 20 minutes curled beside a trail, never enough for the brain to reset. Even those who manage a rare 1 hour of sleep do so with one eye on the watch, knowing that a single miscalculation means elimination. This is not a test of muscle or lungs. It is a test of how the mind begins to unravel when denied the one resource it cannot manufacture: sleep. The course is not designed to punish but to reveal, under the pressure of time and isolation, what remains when conscious control slips away. Every week at Camp Dawson brings a new escalation. The course opens with what seems manageable: a 35-pound rucksack, daytime marches, and the comfort of returning to barracks at night. But by the start of the second week, the ruck weight jumps to 45 pounds. Nights become part of the equation, and the Appalachian foothills turn from a training ground into a proving ground. The days blur, navigation legs stretch longer, elevation gain piles up, and the idea of a fixed schedule disappears. Each candidate moves alone, with only a map, a compass, and a silent clock ticking toward the next checkpoint. The third week ramps up the pressure again. The rucksack weight is now 70 pounds. Candidates are told nothing about how many legs remain or how far the next grid might be. There are no group formations, no shouted orders, only the quiet presence of cadre at distant checkpoints, watching, not intervening. The only feedback comes in the form of survival: arrive within the window, or vanish from the roster. The attrition rate climbs with each day. Out of every 10 who start, only 1 will see the end. The rest quit on their own, turn in their rucks, or are quietly removed after missing a window or making a navigational error. The cumulative load, physical, mental, and emotional, builds in layers. It is not just the weight of the pack, but the weight of uncertainty. Candidates never know how many legs are left, or whether the next checkpoint is a mile away or sans. There is no time to recover. Even the rare chance to rest is haunted by the fear of falling behind. By the time the final week arrives, fatigue is no longer a side effect, it is the main event. The infamous long walk begins with bodies already spent, minds raw from days of fractured sleep, and a rucksack now at its heaviest. The schedule has done its work, setting the stage for a test that is less about muscle and more about how a person's mind copes when every reserve has been stripped away. In this crucible, 90% will break, not from injury or muscle failure, but from the silent, accumulating cost of sleep lost and decisions made under relentless pressure. 72 hours without real sleep does not just make a person tired. The brain itself begins to fail in measurable ways. Studies from Walter Reed Army Institute of Research show cognitive performance drops by about 40% after 3 days awake, enough to match the impairment of a blood alcohol content of 0.1%. That is well above the legal driving limit in every state. Reaction times slow to 3 times their normal length. Tasks that once took seconds now take nearly a minute. On fMRI scans, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles judgment, planning, and self-control, goes dark. Simple decisions become impossible puzzles. Microsleeps, those uncontrollable blackouts lasting 5 to 15 seconds, start to appear. In a lab, these are just data points. In the Appalachian dark, they become missed compass bearings and wrong turns that can end a career. Harvard researchers confirm that hallucinations begin to flicker at 48 hours and can take over by 96. The numbers explain why, even before muscle or willpower give out, the mind starts to betray its owner. This is not exhaustion in the ordinary sense. It is a quantifiable collapse, visible in every delayed reaction, every blank stare, every moment when reality itself begins to slip. Reality begins to fragment quietly. Around hour 72, George Hand found himself staring at his own hand, convinced it was pressed against a wall that didn't exist. The rain soaked through his uniform as he tried to make coffee, but the world had shifted, edges blurred, distances melted, and for a moment, the forest itself seemed to rearrange. Hand later wrote that he could no longer trust what his eyes reported. The mind, starved of sleep, had started to invent its own terrain. Eric Haney, another early Delta operator, described a different unraveling. At 48 hours, he lost track of the grid system entirely. The map became a puzzle with missing pieces, bearings drifted, and the compass needle seemed to spin without reason. Haney's account echoes what Harvard researchers have documented. Hallucinations and perceptual distortions flicker to life after 2 days awake, then intensify as the brain's control centers go dark. Not every candidate makes it to the finish. Rivera, a strong performer in the first week, missed a checkpoint after 70 hours. He later recalled seeing lights in the woods that weren't there and walking in circles, convinced he was heading the right way. Harvard's timeline is clear. By hour 72, the boundary between waking and dreaming collapses. What Delta's cadre want to see is not just who can walk, but who can still think, decide, and adapt when every sense is suspect. In these moments, sleep deprivation does its real work, stripping away bravado and leaving only the core of a person's judgment and will. The long walk begins with bodies spent and minds frayed. 40 miles, no marked path, no finish line in sight, just the drag of a 70-pound rucksack and the silence of cadre who offer nothing but expectation. By 30 miles, the world narrows to a tunnel, aching feet, a trembling compass, and uncertainty pressing in. University College London found that when the endpoint is hidden, stress rises nearly 30%. Here, the unknown becomes the real test. Colonel Charlie Beckwith, Delta's founder, wrote that selection finds not the strongest, but the one who can function when nothing makes sense. The long walk is built to reveal that. Cadre watch, silent, tracking who moves with purpose and who falters. Dr. Miller's research shows that over 80% of selection outcomes can be predicted by how candidates handle these final hours. Around the world, elite units set similar trials. The SAS Fan Dance covers 12 miles. Australia's SASR stretches 48 hours with 23 kilograms. Sayeret Matkal runs 36 hours with 18. Delta's march is longer, heavier, and always alone. In the last miles, sleep deprivation strips away everything but raw decision-making. Here, the mind proves its worth. In Delta selection, it's not muscle but the mind. Starved of sleep, judgment blunted to DUI levels, hallucinations blurring reality that decides who endures. No one orders candidates awake. The mountain forces the choice. Today, elite units still watch for these cracks under pressure, because true resilience is revealed in the dark.